Welcome to the Diary of Discovery, the podcast where we delve deep into the human experience of healing and transformation. I'm your host, Jacky, and each week we will sit down with inspiring individuals who have embarked on their own personal journeys of healing and self-discovery. From overcoming trauma to navigating life's challenges, our guests share their raw and honest stories, offering insights, wisdom, and hope to all who tune in. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and join us as we uncover the power of resilience, courage, and the pursuit of authenticity. This is the Diary of Discovery. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. As always, I am super excited to welcome our new guest, and I'm going to hand straight over. Do you want to tell everyone who you are and where you are in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Jackie, thanks so much for having me on here. I think it's an incredible platform, and the amount of change that you've already made in the world and are continuing to make is very inspiring. And so I'm happy to be here and just make a small part of it. So my name is James Hueston. I'm based here in New York City in the United States of America. And I, by day, am an early stage venture capital investor, and I focus exclusively on technology companies that help older adults and their caregivers. So there's an aging epidemic here in both the US, but also around the world of people rapidly aging, but not necessarily having the care or the support systems around them in order to do that in a healthy and equitable way. And so I'm part of a small team of people that invests out of $110 million in order to back entrepreneurs that are redefining how we think about aging and make sure that everyone can have a happy, healthy, safe life as they progress into those older years.
Oh, wow. I mean, already that is a cause. Like, already, like that is incredible. Okay, but we're not here to talk about that. So
Definitely.
let's talk about your healing journey. Let's talk about take us back. So we always like to start at the starting point, and I
Yeah.
always like to ask guests, like, what was the moment for you when you realized like something had to change, something wasn't right, like this can't be life? Like, what was that
Yeah.
moment? How did that look for you?
Totally. So I think that like anything in life, there's never truly a start or truly an end. It's all just one kind of ongoing journey. And so I think there are two kind of key moments in my life that I've had to heal from, and I think that they're both pretty inextricably linked. One was honestly in middle school and high school, as a young child. So trigger warning for here, but I was going through a very tough time in middle school. I've always been hyper competitive. I've always been relatively intelligent and motivated. And back then, I didn't know how to control that or channel it in great ways. And so, honestly, I was kind of a little bit of an asshole. And I would rub people the wrong way. And so, as a result, got pretty bullied hard in middle school and ostracized in a way that I just didn't know how to deal with. And so ended up actually in seventh grade trying to take my own life at a very young age. And so was lucky enough to fail in that attempt. Like with most things, we fail all the time, and I'm especially glad I failed there. And what it really taught me out the other side was how much I am a light in other people's lives, despite how little I thought that I was at the time, and also how much of an impact that I make in others' lives and how much they make in mine. I saw the pain that that attempt brought to my parents and to my sister, to the friends that I didn't even know really had my back. And I was realized that I really was not alone in that moment. And I also realized that uh, what I had tried to do was one of the most selfish things that I think I ever could have tried to do. And so for me, there was a look back in the mirror of saying, wow, I actually do have a pretty great life. I'm an accomplished athlete. I'm doing well in school. I do have friends that I really enjoy. I took up Magic the Gathering as a card game, which I really enjoyed doing. And from there, I launched a citywide anti-bullying campaign where I grew up out in Denver, Colorado. And it was a great success, brought a lot of awareness to a lot of the problems that I think other children like me were facing. Um, and then in high school, kind of just put that on the back burner, really focused on academics, on the sports I enjoyed playing, hockey, lacrosse, cross country, enjoyed on friends, just really trying to be a kid and enjoy life. And was lucky enough to get into an amazing college at called Vassar College here in Poughkeepsie, New York. Studied economics while I was there with minors in mathematics and physics. Really enjoyed my time there, but then the pandemic hit in 2020. So I was supposed to graduate in May of 2020. And I was playing my senior season of lacrosse. I was finally going to be a starter on the team. We were finally looking up on having a very good season in front of us. We had a great team put together, and then it was all ripped away in a week or so. I lost that season. I lost the chance to have a senior graduation, a chance to have a lot of time spent with my friends, and that experience that so many people get in those last couple months of college. And frankly, I did not deal with it in super healthy ways. When the season got canceled, a bunch of seniors on the team stayed behind on campus, and honestly, we drank and smoked weed every single day for like a month. And it was in order to find camaraderie, drown our sorrows, XYZ. But I think my parents kind of knew what was going on and got a hint of like the destructive habits that we'd fallen into. And so they had me come home in April of that year after just a month kind of on my own at school. Um, and candidly, I didn't stop drinking and I didn't stop smoking. I was locked in a room or in a house in the same way that so many other people were, and just felt utterly alone, utterly isolated, like my world had ended in a number of ways. I had a job that I was supposed to go work at that had the job offer revoked because of the pandemic. And so I was just sitting there like, what the heck am I going to do here? Um, and so luckily, had the opportunity to rejoin the venture capital fund that I'd interned at the previous summer, and worked for them entirely pro bono. Was just like, I need something to do. I want to contribute. And it hopefully I had the idea of if I worked hard enough, I could eventually work my way into a full-time role, even though that wasn't guaranteed. And so was able to do that. Eventually started on an hourly basis, then a small salary basis as an outside contractor, and then eventually got a full-time offer to join the team and move all the way out to San Francisco to work there, which was amazing. And despite all of that, I was still drinking very heavily, like 4 or 5 nights a week. I was still smoking every night just to shut my brain off. It was really the only thing that worked. And so there's still a ton of pain that I just like couldn't really deal with. I didn't want to face it. And so I lost myself in work and in my addictions. So I was working 80 or 90 hours a week. And then when I wasn't working, I was either drinking with other people or smoking alone to go to bed. So it wasn't a great existence, but I did find friends out in San Francisco. I got to play a lot of golf, which I found a passion for during the pandemic. It was a great outlet outside. I think golf is a privileged sport that a lot of us get to play, but those that do, it's an amazing allegory for life, I think, right? You have to play the ball as it lies, as they say. And I think in life and in golf, you can really see what people are made of, right? Do they lie, cheat, and steal with the ball in life? Do they play the ball as it's supposed to? Do they get frustrated if things don't go their way? Do they keep their composure under or under hectic situations, right? Are they clutch, right? Can they come in when it matters most? And so really found a lot of value there, a lot of solace there, met some amazing friends out there. And I think part of what was so helpful about my job was part of it is I actually am supposed to meet a ton of people, a ton of amazing entrepreneurs, a ton of other amazing investors. And so just by nature of what I was lucky enough to do, it kind of brought me out of that shell and put me in touch with a lot of amazing people. But still wasn't fully healed. Throughout all of this, was actually doing a long distance relationship with my now fiance. We were just dating at the time, doing long distance, and we did it for about a year until we both realized that we really wanted to spend the rest of our lives together, ideally, see if we could make it work. And long distance was not going to be the way to do that. So it made more sense for me to move back to New York City as opposed to her to move out to SF. She'd grown up out here on the East Coast in the US and just did not have a support network out in the West Coast, and it didn't feel fair to isolate her. So I wanted to move back to the East Coast. I still had a good number of friends from college. Obviously, my job was to network, so I still knew a lot of people in my industry and in New York as well. And my family had actually relocated to Massachusetts, and so everything was kind of calling me back home to the East Coast, it seemed like. And so in June of that year, I'd been interviewing for a number of roles. I had two different roles that shook my hand and said they would be in touch with an offer the next week. And so I put a bunch of other processes on pause, was like, all right, these are the roles that I get to move back to New York for. And then both of them actually rescinded the handshake offer. Neither one of them ended up following through, which was really unfortunate. And so I moved back to New York in July of that year without a job, without a super clear plan for the future, as it were. But I knew that I was with the person that I wanted to be with, and we moved in together. It was amazing. Um, and everything ended up working out. I re-engaged with a few of the processes that I'd put on pause when I thought I had those other offers. And one of them ended up panning out, being primetime partners, which I think is exactly where I needed to be and exactly where I should be today as well. So I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason. We just might not know it in the moment. And I ended up right where I was supposed to be. And so started the role in September of 2022. And honestly, I wasn't ready. I got thrown into the deep end. It was a role that expected a lot of me, required more than I thought I had. And candidly, I still hadn't kicked the drinking or the smoking. And so was working just as much as I had, abusing substances just as much as I had. And honestly, truthfully, the smoking I'd been hiding from everybody. I had told a lot of people that I quit, but I hadn't. It was the only way I figured out I could fall asleep, which has obviously since not been the case. And then the drinking I rationalized away as being part of my job, right? I think we all do that at some points, and so uh, lived a pretty unhealthy lifestyle, but was still successful in my career. And then came March of 2023, and I'm not super religious, but and neither, but my fiance grew up Catholic, and so practices Lent every year. And so for Lent, I wanted to see if I could give up alcohol for 40 days, just in solidarity with her, even though I'm not religious. And the other reason why I wanted to do it was I'm only 5'6" and I hit 200 pounds on the scale one day. And so I just looked at myself in the mirror, I looked down at that scale, and I was like, something needs to change here. Your body is breaking down. It doesn't feel great. You wake up every morning not really liking yourself or the meat suit you're in, as I say. And so gave it up for 40 days. And honestly, the first couple of days were rough, as most things are when you give up addictions, but was able to do it for the full 40 days and I lost 25 pounds in those in the first like 2.5 weeks, which was amazing. And felt a lot better about myself, felt better overall. And then amazingly, my fiance by coincidence had actually planned a trip for us to go down to see Machu Picchu in Peru. And so we were going to do the entire Incan Trail. It's a 26-mile hike, like 10,000 vertical feet, and it's 4 days and 3 nights. Um, and that was an amazing journey to like rediscover what it meant like to push myself both physically and mentally in ways that I hadn't done since athletics in college and in other ways throughout my life growing up. And it just reaffirmed what what I needed to do, which was kind of get back on the horse and continue to stop to quit alcohol, to ideally quit weed. I'd gone the longest time I had without smoking when I was down there, because obviously it's very illegal there. Can't transport it across borders, and so faced that withdrawal head on, and I think even more transformatively, uh, those places, those mountains are incredibly sacred to the Incan people, right? And walking through them and pushing myself and being with an amazing group of local porters, I felt that spiritual connection. I have never grown up religious. I had never really even grown up spiritual. I was a full-blown atheist, but for whatever reason, hiking through those mountains, I just felt a connection to earth and a connection to some greater being that was indescribable. This trail on the side of these mountains, it overlooks 1,000 foot tall like drops, and it's only like 6 feet wide, and it's on this old cobblestone. And some reason, despite going in the middle of dry season, it poured rain the entire time that we were there, just dumped. And so should have been like very scared of falling off, but the entire time I felt glued to that mountain in a way that I couldn't describe. And just it was breathtaking in every sense of the word. And so really reconnected me to something bigger than myself. I think so much of us get lost in our own egos and our own problems and our separateness from everything else when actually we're connected to everything. And so that really reaffirmed it for me. And then I came back. I did give up alcohol. I drank every now and again, but not in the way I did before. Um, and I gave up smoking for about 2 months. But then I did relapse, which was unfortunate. And then in July at a friend's bachelor party. I had trigger one. I'd been experimenting with psychedelics for like a year or so. I'd been doing a good amount of ketamine to explore that with friends and other people. I'd seen the incredible transformative impact that it had on loved ones, on friends and family, on so many others. And so I'd been doing it myself, self-medicating as I'd been doing for so long. Had found some help there, but because it was largely self-medicated, nothing really happened. And then at this, I'd been doing trying mushrooms, psilocybin for a little while, and that had actually been incredibly helpful, incredibly connecting to nature and so many other things and people. And then at a friend's bachelor party in July, I accidentally took a 10-gram dose, which is like they call it a God dose. Like it's way more than you ever should have, right? Like a good like intro dose is like 1 to 2 grams. A heavy dose is like 3 to 4. So 10 was like beyond what anyone I think should ever take. It happened because we took three in the evening going out. I figured it would have worn off by the next morning, so we took more in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I forgot that I'd taken stuff in the morning, and so had another like 4 gram dose, and so was just in it in a way that was really indescribable. And I didn't realize it till like after the fact, but then I didn't sleep for like 3 days. I had a full blown what is considered a drug induced manic episode, honestly. Um, and it just put everything in my life in perspective. I truly felt a reaffirmation of the connection I felt down in Machu Picchu to a thing greater than us, to an existence greater than even we can comprehend. And so that connection really put in perspective how insignificant I was, but also how significant I still could be. That I had, as part of that, I wrote like a 40-page manifesto in one of those evenings in the middle of the just crazy manic episode. And it was one of the most egotistical, like wild things that I've ever put to paper or ever thought. But in the midst of all of that, there were hints of truth and hints of things that I knew I wanted to accomplish in my life and that I could accomplish in my life, and hints of what I would need to do in order to do that, in order to get to where I wanted to go, in order to attain what I saw as possible at in that moment. And so, through the love and support of my friends and family, got the support I needed, and was able to get the right psychiatric treatment, the right therapy. I've had an amazing therapist that I've spoken with and found incredible value in for the last year and a half. And since then, have just been on a journey that we can definitely get more into, but of shedding those vices. I no longer drink, I no longer smoke. I no longer watch pornography or a lot of the other things that we can so often fall into as ways of escape. And I've built so many great friends, relationships. I'm closer than ever to my fiance. We got engaged in March of this year. I'm closer with my parents, my sister, so many other people in my life. And I think that the moral and the takeaway is I think that we all reach a breaking point, a point where, to your point, we just can't take it anymore. And I think I reacted relatively subconsciously to that point. I don't necessarily know if it was a conscious decision in a number of ways, but in other points, it was a conscious decision, right? The trying to give up drinking. But then the subconscious was the trip and everything else that came after that. But what I realized is, and it's so hard to do, is so much of what you see when you're in that mental state is different than the day to day and different than the sober reality that we live in. And so it can be hard to reintegrate what you see and do there into kind of the here and now. And so the last year and a half have really been about how do I integrate those practices into the day to day. And so it involves a lot of journaling, a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, a lot of moving my body and moving my brain. And have really, I think, found myself and found my purpose in the world through that journey.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Then, like, thank you firstly for sharing that. I think it's so It's so incredible to listen to people's journeys, but even more so for me to have men speak so openly about their journeys. I think
Mm.
a lot of men struggle to,
Totally.
even think it for themselves, never mind admit it out loud to other people, that there is a healing journey to be had. And there's so many things that have been taught to us as to how we should deal with things and what is allowed for women and men and all of those sorts of
Totally.
things. I think it's so incredible to be able to actually say, this is it, this is what happened, this is how it worked, this is the journey that we went on, this is where I've ended up. And like,
Completely.
yeah, we'll dive more in because
Yeah.
100%, 100%, like it'll be great. But I really want to know, like, as you were going on the journey, so there were multiple points, like, in school, in that
Mhm.
suicide attempt, but also in college when everything fell apart around you and you were thinking, this is what I thought my life was going to be, and now it's not. And then moving away and having a long distance relationship, like there's so many different things that have been moments in that journey. And I
Totally.
guess, like, I want to know, like, what did you need to learn about yourself or embrace about yourself or get to know about yourself to actually go on this journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think to your point earlier too about like what society teaches both men and women about how to feel our feelings. Like I didn't cry for probably a decade. Like I just didn't. I both didn't know how to and didn't really think I should or even was allowed to, right? I thought that I had to be the rock. I had to be strong. I'd shown such a moment of weakness in my youth that I had to be strong and for everyone else. And that's not what healing is. That's not what actually true strength is. I cry all the time now. It's an amazing way to release energy and release thoughts and feelings and just one of the most important things about any journey and any healing journey is you have to feel those feelings. They don't go away. They just get buried. And Carl Jung, right, talks about our shadow self and our unconscious self. And if we don't address those things, then we react subconsciously and live our life from them as opposed to dealing with them and by feeling them. It's the only way. And so to your point of what gave me the strength and the guidance at each one of those moments, um, I think one of the things that's so interesting about life, and I think most people miss about success stories and other people, is it's only a coherent story and it's only success in retrospect. When you're living through it in every day to day, you're mostly just stumbling along. You're mostly just trying to get to the next day or get to the next occasion or get to the next like person that you're seeing. And at so many of those moments, it was really just I wanted to get to the next goal. I think I needed to be goal oriented, and I still am goal oriented, but I don't attach my entire self-worth to the goals that I set and if I achieve them or not. So like what got me through high school was my goal to play college lacrosse. I actually as part of that journey, I tore every ligament in my knee twice. And then I was able to come back from both of those, and I got into an amazing college that I wanted to and to play there. And then the week before classes started, I tore it for a third time, actually. And so I had to go through the first 6 months on campus on crutches and in rehab, and spent a year in rehab and so much there. But I knew I wanted to play lacrosse in college, and so that kept me motivated. Um, and like looking back into the career path that I chose, like I just knew that I wanted to be around startups and innovation and did enough to figure out how to make that happen and make that work and was lucky enough to have some amazing connections through friends, family, and by reaching out coldly and just putting in the work. And so uh, I think that's the biggest thing is that in retrospect, it seems to all work out. And one of the things that has really helped me, especially today, I think one of the most important things is despite my journey and how quote unquote healed I am or I'm not, it's always still a process. It's always still progress day after day. There's never really an end point to the journey that we call life. And so uh, one of the things that's given me the most solace, I still face incredible uncertainty every single day. But I realized, and a friend pointed this out, right, is I have survived 100% of my worst days. I have survived every single thing that I thought I would never survive, right? And so if I can survive 100% of those, if I have a perfect track record retroactively, why on earth would that not be the same moving forward? And so that gives me an incredible amount of confidence and awareness in everything else. And then the last thing that you mentioned was like, what did I have to become in order to do these things, or what have I become as I've gone through it? And I think one of the most important things about a healing journey is it's actually not about becoming anything. It's about unbecoming every single thing that you're not. It's about unbecoming everything that society has taught you, that's taught us. It's about unbecoming every expectation that others have on you that are their expectations, not yours. It's about unbecoming the labels that society places on us, whether it be sex, gender, orientation, religion, just so many other things. It's truly about through feeling those feelings and having the support of others around you, learning what it means to be you, and finally embracing that because we're all so unique in our own ways, and society tries to make us all one big homogenous structure, and that's just not the case. And so it takes a long time to figure out what makes you authentically you. But once you figure that out and you embrace that, it unlocks so many doors, and it's like a weight just lifted off your shoulders.
I love that. It's it's so amazing. Again, like that process of becoming unapologetically you, like that process, that is the healing. Like that is exactly what it is. It's getting to that point where you can sit back and go, I really like myself. I like who I am. I like how I show up in the world. Like I like the people around me and the life that I've created. And, I'm happy majority of the time. And actually,
Totally.
that in itself is healing. That in itself is the journey that we're going on. Because if we can achieve that and we can achieve 90% of our lives being the way that we want it to, in a way that makes us happy, then we're better off than so many people in the world who
Yeah.
still live in that space of, exactly like you were saying, not wanting to feel their feelings, not wanting to speak truthfully about what's going on for them, not wanting
Yeah,
to say to people like, oh, actually I am struggling, and this isn't working. And it's so interesting because I always say to people, like, it's so easy to connect the dots when you're standing at the front and you're looking back. You're like,
yeah,
oh, yeah, I can see how all of these things led me here. But like
yeah,
when you're in it, it just looks like a thick of trees and you're just like, I've got no idea where to go and I don't know what to do and I don't know what's next. And it's
totally.
such a challenging thing, like when you're going through, and like especially when you're in that healing space and you are trying to clear those emotions and you're trying to feel your feelings and you're trying to do all of these things that we've been taught not to do. And as boys taught not to have emotions full stop, and as girls
Totally.
to not be too emotional but not be so unemotional, and like there's like so many boundaries as to like what you're allowed to and not allowed to do. And I
Completely.
think like such a there's just such a message in that like process of like how did you look at life differently, like once you realized, you said you didn't cry for 10 years, like once you realized like it was okay to cry, like it's okay to feel your feelings, it's okay to be who you are, like how did your outlook on life change?
Uh, it changed entirely. Like truly, one of the biggest things I've come to realize, so as part of my journey over the last 18 months that I've done is like I've read every major religion's like holy texts. I've listened to a ton of philosophy. I've tried to find common threads throughout all of our great thinkers and great spiritual experiences. And one of the truths that I feel like I've arrived at that so many other amazing people before me have is that our definition of like heaven and hell in a Western world are not actually places. They're mental states. And if you actually read the like Jesus's scripture, there's a line that he references where to make it to heaven, you have to go through the temple, right? And people often think that that's the church, right? The temple of place of worship. But it's actually not. It's this temple. It's up here. It's a mental barrier that we need to cross. And so when I flipped from not feeling my feelings, from always being afraid, from hating who I was, honestly. That was why I drank. That was why I smoked. That was why I did so many things, was I wanted to escape myself. I wanted to be somewhere else. I wanted to be in a different state of mind. And once I was able to escape that and deal with all of the evils that I was and didn't want to be, and actually turn those around to a point where I liked who I was. And it's amazing. Like it truly is. Like you feel free in almost any given moment to live in the here and now. At the end of the day, one of the biggest, like most crazy things is that the only moment we ever actually have is now, the present moment. The past doesn't actually exist. The future doesn't exist. They're both mental constructs that we have that we think about when we're here and now, right? And so as I've healed and feel more confident in myself. It's not about so much. My depression came from, and anxiety came from needing to control the future, right? From needing to understand and be okay that it will work out by control, right? And I think that's why so much of our society is so sick at times, is because we just feel this inordinate need for control because we don't trust in ourselves and we don't trust in others and in the universe, honestly, that it will work out. Um, and one of the things, kind of going back to earlier, is like everything has already worked out, and so as a result, it will continue to work out. And so it's not actually a trust that I have in myself in the future being okay, right? The future could very well not be okay, but I have a trust in myself that I will be able to handle whatever comes, no matter what, and that I will be okay by being able to handle whatever comes. And so this idea of kind of bliss or enlightenment or so many other things that you want to term it, or heaven or anything else, right? It's not that things are always good or that you're always happy, actually. It's that you're always okay with what comes, no matter what, and you're always thankful for it, right? Anything bad that happens or any failure is actually just a lesson or a redirection, right? And anything good that happens is something to be celebrated and enjoyed, but it's not something to get stuck on or relish because it's just as fleeting as anything else. And so true happiness and truly being on the other side is about figuring out how to surf the waves, as opposed to trying to swim through them, right?
I love that. Surf the waves instead of swimming through them. I think that that's such a beautiful analogy for how life is. I mean, like water is one of the most amazing elements that there
True.
is when you look at the power that it has and the destruction it can cause and the life that it gives. And like there's so many elements to water that are so beautiful. But if you try fight it, it is a losing battle. Like you try swim against the current, like you know how hard it is. And I
Yep.
think exactly that, like if you can go with the waves rather than fight them, it's going to make life so much easier. And again, so many people go on this journey and they are so stuck in what everyone else thinks they should be and how everyone else expects them to live their life and what everyone else wants from them and wants for them. And there's so much pressure from generations, from society, from friend groups, from everyone around us. And it's so it's so empowering when you can actually step out of that and just ask, like, what do I need? What makes me happy? And if I can be in this moment and be happy, if I can, like who I am, and you have to spend majority of your time with you. Like that is who you spend
Cool.
90%. Like, we spend so much time with ourselves in our heads, alone with our thoughts. And to actually be able to go through that and get to a point where you feel at peace, I think it's such a testament to the work that's been done and the hard work. Like it's not easy. It's not easy to get to this point. It's a journey. It really is. And I speak to loads of people on the podcast and we always hear about, how people have gone through this and what they've actually done. And I know you've mentioned a few things already around, journaling and doing yoga and, these ways of actually just connecting back with yourself. And I wondered, like, what other advice do you have? And like, I always love when I speak to male guests to actually ask them specifically for men. Like, I speak to so many female guests. We can tell women how to heal time and time again. But like, I have so few male guests. So like, speak specifically to the male listeners and tell them like genuinely, what do they need to do? Like, how do they navigate this?
Yeah, totally. So I think the most important thing is to start by giving yourself grace, by giving yourself the ability to heal, and by acknowledging that you are in pain, and that that's okay. It is okay to be in pain. It is okay to hurt. It is okay to not be as strong as you think others need you to be. And true strength, I think, especially in a masculine way, is not never feeling emotion. It is not. It is actually not letting emotion control you. That is the most important way to show strength. Our emotions are just thoughts that cross our mind in the same way that any others do. And so we can selectively choose which of those we give action to, which of those we give credence to, and how we react and respond to them. And so the other most important thing to recognize too is that the journey uh, is hard. It fucking sucks. It's one of the most painful things I've ever done. But what's crazy about it is no matter how painful it is, no matter how awful it is not anywhere close to as painful or as bad as just sitting where you are, sitting in the pain. And because if you go through the journey, if you go through the challenges, it too shall pass. It will end. But if you just sit there, if you don't do anything, you still have to continue to feel that pain day after day after day. And to your point earlier about how we spend the most time with ourselves, right? Um, if like you have to be kind to yourself, right? If somebody spoke to me the way I speak to my or I spoke to myself, if I spoke to others the way I spoke to myself, I would want to punch that person. I would not want to be friends with them. I would want nothing to do with them. I would think that they were bad for other people to be around. And if they're bad, if that person is bad for other people to be around, they're really bad for you to be around most of the time. And so you have to be kind to yourself. You have to practice good self-talk. You have to practice mantras, as dumb as it sounds. You have to remind yourself that we're fallible human beings and that we deserve grace and forgiveness. We all make mistakes. And the point of making a mistake is it's a lesson and it's an opportunity to do better. It's not something to be ashamed of. Now, if you consciously make mistakes, if you consciously do bad, that's a different story, right? But at the end of the day, you can still come back from that. You can still repent for anything you've done as long as you put in the work and try and lead with a good heart and lead with love. Um, and so the actionable ways that I found most effective to do it is start by talking about your feelings. Like truly, find a trained professional in order to help you talk through it. We don't have all the answers. Our friends and family don't have all the answers. Uh, Trained professionals don't have all the answers, but they have more of the tools in order to help us explore what we need to explore. And once they give you those tools, then that's where the other stuff comes in. That's where meditation is incredibly helpful. Um, Both guided meditation, unguided meditation, body check-in meditation. It's all about connecting to something bigger than yourself. And as weird as it sounds, we're actually not our thoughts. We're not even really these entities that we kind of fill in a day-to-day like existence, right? Our name, our identity is a summation of all of our experiences and everyone else's experiences with us. But at the end of the day, we're the observer behind ourselves that are just watching our thoughts and our experience. And so if you can learn that through meditation, through practice, it allows you to kind of separate in a way that the day to day doesn't impact you as much as it did before or as it should. And it's a very weird mental flip to have, but it's an incredibly healthy one. And if you look at all of the great mystical teachers, all of the great theologists, all of the great philosophers, they've all made this mental flip and they've lived better lives for it. One of the best apps that I cannot recommend enough is the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. That app has a 30-day introductory course that I found incredibly helpful, and they have daily meditations that I still do. They also have a library of hundreds of thousands of hours of the greatest philosophers and theological concepts of our time. And so it's an amazing exploratory place to take it. Um, the other thing that I'd recommend people do is move your bodies. Our bodies and our minds are inextricably linked together. And the more you move your body, the more your mind moves. And it quiets itself down as you kind of ramp everything else up. So yoga, I found, is an amazing way to enter that kind of meditative state while also moving your body and being physical and being in a room and with a teacher and somebody and more people bigger than yourself, once again. Just finding ways of exercise that you enjoy. I grew up playing hockey and I gave that up for a while, but I now play in a men's league every week in order to get that urge out and have fun that way. And it's an amazing sense of community. And the biggest thing is connect with people. Let them know that you're hurting. At the end of the day, everyone is hurting. We're all going through battles and journeys that nobody else is ever aware of, right? Um, and the more you let your guard down, the more it gives people the unconscious ability to let their guard down as well and to also be vulnerable. And so, if you can find those people that support you unconditionally in the same way that you do them, they will help you on this healing journey. And the more you join communities, the more you get out, the more you experience with people, the better off you'll be. We are a social creature, and we need to be with people. We need to interact, and as lonely as the world may seem, we're never actually alone, right? We're just a phone call away, just a message or a text message away, just a community gathering away. And then I would say spend more time in nature. I grew up out and was lucky enough to grow up in Denver, Colorado, but now I live in a concrete jungle. I'm only a few blocks away from Central Park, not to dox myself, but it's amazing to be so close to nature. But even that is a cheap substitute for like actually just being alone in nature and connecting to uh, something Earth that is so much greater than ourselves. Um, so that would be like the main things I would recommend. And I think the last thing is like you have to be okay with not everybody liking you. You truly do. At the end of the day, you also have to realize that you don't even like everybody, right? So if you don't even like everybody, how can you expect everyone to like you? And it's not that you're a bad person if somebody doesn't like you. It's just that you're on different wavelengths. You vibe differently than other people. And one of the biggest things that you have to be comfortable with is realizing and recognizing that what leaves is what is making room for what is better. So while it might be scary to let go of people or things or routines, the universe has a pretty crazy way of always replacing it with what actually needs to be there. And so you just have to trust in that and trust in yourself to navigate that current.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. That's all incredible advice. And I really hope that everyone who listens takes on board some of those things. A lot of what you're talking about is stuff that I do as well, and I've done through my practice. I'm actually a trained yoga teacher, and it's when you talk about yoga, I'm just like, yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what it's all about.
Totally.
And it's
Yeah.
it's so beautiful, and I think it's such a meditation, particularly as part of that yogic journey, is such a great way to connect with yourself and get really comfortable with who you actually are and explore
Totally.
that like that inner version of yourself. So I think that that is so spectacular. And okay, final question, because I have literally with all of our guests, I feel like I could talk to you guys for like years. It's ridiculous. But final question, to wrap up the podcast, I always like to ask people, like what's next on your healing journey? You've already said that it's a journey, it's it's not like a start and a finish. So what's next for you? What's the next thing that you're healing, that you're working towards? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I think the answer is I'm still figuring it out. I have a pretty good sense of what I want it to be. But one of the things that helps me most figure it out is journaling, actually. I failed to mention this in your last question, but I journal every morning and I journal every evening. And I use both a free form journal, which is just a great way to get my thoughts out. We get so jumbled around in our head, it can only contain so much. But if you get it out onto paper, it just provides an un unbelievable sense of clarity because you have to consciously think about it in order to write it. But it also just gets it out of your head and gets it to where somewhere else that you can reference in the future. But I write in a journal called the 5 Minute Journal, which does an amazing job of helping you to practice gratitude. No amount of worrying will ever change the future, but any amount of gratitude will always change the present. And the more you can be grateful for the people in your life, for your own experience, for just everything, the better off you'll realize you are, right? So much of our society is about teaching us that we lack, as opposed to showing us that we actually have everything we need. And so by practicing gratitude, you can quickly realize that you have all of the material things you could ever want. You have all of the people you could ever need. You have the experiences in life that you want. And even if you're not where you want to be, you're on the journey to get there. And so for my journey, for what's next, for where I want to go, there's still some personal healing that I have to do. I think that that's personal to me, and is always everyone always has not secrets, but things that they can't share with others that they have to work through and figure out and put in perspective for themselves. Um, and I think that that's what's tough is you need to share almost everything with other people, but there are always a few things that just you can't quite do it because nobody else will ever understand, and that's okay too. And so for me, the biggest thing that I want to do on my healing journey is help others heal in the same way that you are, Jacky. I think that you can't fill anybody else's cup until yours is full. And I feel like mine is starting to be filled, is starting to be close to full. It always needs to be refilled. And so you can't pour from an empty cup, but now that mine is mostly full, I want to help start filling others. And so for me, that looks like continuing to spread awareness about this aging epidemic that's happening, right? Most people don't know, but older adults are some of the loneliest people in existence right now. And being chronically lonely has been shown to have the same negative health benefit effects as smoking a pack of cigarettes every single day. And so they need help in the same way that we all need help, right? There's a loneliness epidemic affecting everybody. And so I want to break down those barriers and show others that there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing, no reason to be lonely. We all just have to be as vulnerable and authentic as possible. And one of the things that I figured out through the spiritual journey and through the theologic journey and through the philosophic journey is there really is only one big, great uniting force and purpose why we're all here. And that purpose and uniting force is love. Like truly. As cliche as it sounds, we are all here to learn to love ourselves unconditionally and to learn to love each other unconditionally. And the faster we can do that, the better off we're all going to be. And so I want to figure out the best ways to spread that love, and figure out how to maintain it for myself and make sure that others can find theirs. And so I want to leave with kind of a quote that like really is like changed my life for the better. And um, it's actually an amazing piece of pop culture. One of the things that you'll realize as you go on your journey is these lessons are actually everywhere. Like part of my language, but they are fucking everywhere, right? Because there are people that have been on these journeys and succeeded in their journeys for generations before us, and they've laid the breadcrumbs because they can't tell us. Nobody can ever make the decision for you to go on a healing journey other than yourself. But they can lay the groundwork and they can make the path easier for you, and the path is a lot easier. So this is from a movie, Coach Carter. It's an American film about basketball. And one of the students gets up and reads this quote out loud in order to inspire his coach and inspire his team and really let his coach know that he's internalized the lessons that he's been instilling in him. And so the quote goes, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we consciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And so that's what's next on my healing journey is trying to liberate others and show them that there is nothing to fear other than fear itself, right? As cliche as that is. We are all these divine beings in human form, and we all can shine incredibly brightly, and we all are supposed to shine incredibly brightly, just as children do, right? But society teaches children, just as it's taught us, that we're not supposed to shine, that we're supposed to conform, that we're supposed to fit in. And they do that because they are afraid of their own brightness. They're afraid of our brightness. And so it is up to us in order to find what makes us bright, what lights up our world. And it is up to us to then spread that light so that everyone can learn to spread theirs.
Oh, I love that. And Coach Carter, like, what a good movie. What an inspiration. I absolutely love it. It always, whenever people share quotes, the quote that always comes back to me is Maya Angelou, where she shares success is liking who you are, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And
Yeah,
that is how we achieve success. And I think it's just so simple. And that thought of, there are so many people who have walked this path of enlightenment before us, who have left these beautiful breadcrumbs of when you're ready to actually hear them, when you're ready for, so many people would have watched Coach Carter and that quote would have done nothing for them. It would have
totally.
just been a line in a movie that, they were like, oh yeah, that's good. And actually, when you read it now, it gives me proper goosebumps because I'm like, I can feel that. Like I know it to be the truth. And it's a completely different way of connecting, but you can only do that when you get to a certain point in your healing journey. And I
So,
think that this moment for you of actually being able to give back now and being able to step in and say, actually, we need more men in this space talking about this stuff. We need more people talking about the older generations who are often just forgotten, and people live so much longer than they used to, and it's there's such an epidemic around how communities and families and the world supports each other. So I think that is such an incredible just such an incredible cause for you to go out into the world, and I'm so glad that we could give you a bit of a platform to obviously start sharing that. And as always, we always link back to our guests, so if anybody wants to get in touch with James, all of his contact details will be below and you'll be able to reach out and obviously have these conversations. I think that it's absolutely incredible, and thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. And also, good luck on the rest of your healing journey. I think that there's always a bit of luck that's needed as you go on the journey. But it's been an absolute honor, like, to have you. Thank you so much.
yeah, likewise. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you so much for creating such an amazing platform and wanting to spread such an amazing message from so many others. I think it's what's so critical, and you've alluded to this, is that we're all on different journeys and we're all going at different speeds, and we need to stop comparing ourselves to others or what they're doing. Most people only project what is the best parts about them and not the demons that they're finding inside. And so the more we recognize that and the more we're grateful for our own journey and at our own pace, the happier we'll be with kind of everything that ends up coming.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of the Diary of Discovery. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends, family, or anyone else you think might benefit from the stories of hope and transformation. Your feedback means the absolute world to us, so please take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us to reach even more listeners and continue to bring this meaningful content to the world. Until next time, remember, your healing journey is valid. You are never alone, and you have the strength to get through this. Keep shining bright, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Diary of Discovery.